What's up guys, it's your boy Falcon back in, and today we're working on a 2002 Lancer. And when we're working on this, it has an EGR core, which I believe it's a P0401. And basically on this one, I already took out the EGR and I checked it. The EGR is actually good. The way you can check the EGR is if it's not electronic, if it works by vacuum, it has a little tube that it goes through, and I'll put a picture of the EGR here. And it has a little tube, and I'll show you that little tube right there. And basically you can clean it out and kind of suck on it basically. And if the little diaphragm on the inside, you can see it going up and down. If it goes up and then you put your finger on the little tube and it holds it, then basically it's a good one. So I did that on this one. I took it off and I saw that the EGR was good. So the next thing to do is to replace the EGR control valve, I believe that's what it's called. And the newer cars, actually it's all one piece, is the EGR and the control valves on the top. But this one is separate, and I'm going to show you where it's at and how to replace it. So let's get to it. Alright, so start off, we have the top of the engine right here. We have the EGR valve there, and the actual EGR is going to be back there. But we're going to replace this shiny part right here, which is the EGR valve. So we're going to start off. This is the EGR valve right here. This is the old one. I had already replaced it, but I decided to make this video. So we're going to go back in there and show you guys how to remove it. We have two hoses and one 10mm bolt on the back behind it. And it's going to go right there. So to start off, we're going to have to remove all these hoses here. So this metal piece right here where it comes with all these hoses, those are all the intake hoses. So we have the one right here. We have this little valve back here, then another vacuum line right there. We're going to go under that right there. So we're going to start off by removing the 10mm bolt on the top. And then it's supposed to have two more 10mm bolts in the bottom. But this car was already missing one 10mm bolt. So we're going to go ahead and remove the one in the bottom. And now these bolts are just on the bracket where all those metal hoses are at. After I loosen it up, I'm just going to go ahead and do it manually just with the 10mm socket. So we're just going to get it to the bottom just because the room down there is very difficult to get to. So there it goes. The bolt is off. And now this whole metal piece is completely loose. Looking at the metal piece right here, it's loose, and that is where one of the 10mm bolt goes and the other one goes right there. So completely loose. So now we're gonna start removing all the hoses out of the way. So we have this one here, that one back there, we have the one on the side, the two on the top, and of course we have one in the back of the EGR. On this right here, if you guys notice, I removed those hoses opposite. That way whenever I put them back on, I don't get them mixed up. So I put back the one from one side and the other one from the other side, and it will make sense later on in the future. Every hose that you take off, try to remember where it's gonna go and put it so where you're not gonna lose it. So here we go. We have those two hoses that are gonna go to the EGR valve. This is completely loose now. Now we'll remove the upper hose, the one that goes from the valve cover to the intake, and there it goes. Put it to the side, make sure that we don't crack any of the hoses. So now that this is loose, we have one more hose down here. And once we take it completely off, I will show you guys all the hoses. So now I'm going to reach on the back and disconnect the EGR hose. If you reach behind the throttle body, you will feel the EGR, and all you got to do is disconnect that little hose that goes on the EGR. So now we're going to disconnect this upper one, move the hose out of the way, and now we're going to wiggle this thing out of the way and move it out. Careful with all the hoses, make sure that we don't crack any of the hoses. If any hoses crack, replace it with a new one because it will cause issues, more checking your lights. And here it is, this part is outside, so we have the two bolts that go right there on the bottom, two 10mm bolts. This one that goes to this one right here and this one back here are the ones that go to the EGR valve. And if you put the EGR valve side to side, it's gonna sit right here, and that hose is gonna go to this one, and the upper hose is gonna go to this one right there. That's how it usually sits while it's on the intake right there. And like I said, to remove it, all you have is a 10mm bolt back there, which is the new one right there, and then like I said, just two hoses. So now here comes the tricky part. 10mm bolt on the back. I'm gonna use a 10mm ratchet, and I'm gonna stick it back there with my hand and if you push it down, that should be able to loosen it up. It's righty tighty, lefty loosey, remember, but since it's upside down or it's backwards, if you press it down, it's actually gonna loosen it up. Okay, now that we have it loose and we can see it right here very carefully, take that nut off and then pull it out, and here we go. This is our EGR solenoid valve. And now we're gonna test it out with my power probe connected to the battery. So we have just these two and then the one connector, and the only thing it does inside is just opens and closes so the vacuum can go through. So we're gonna put a negative on one prong, positive on the other prong. I'm touching it and there is no continuity here. Now I'm giving it power and you cannot hear anything, no clicking, no nothing. This is the new one, same thing. You can hear the continuity. Now I give it power. You can clearly hear the click. Now I'm gonna turn off this little noise. You can clearly hear the click. And that shows us that the new one is good and the bad one is completely dead. So now to put the new one back on, you can see this little tab here is gonna be facing down. So that little tab goes in that little hole right there. So we put the bolt through and then the little tab holds it in place. Very carefully we pull the nut through the back and we're gonna start hand tying it just with the hand. Now to get the 10mm ratchet back there, righty tighty, lefty loosey, but remember it's upside down, so we're actually gonna tighten it, pulling it up. Now that that's done, now we gotta get the whole assembly, vacuum assembly back on very carefully. Make sure not to crack any of the hoses so we don't have to replace them. Now very carefully we get this hose and kind of stick it inside there. That's the hose that's gonna go into the EGR. We pull this back here. We put the EGR hose back on and that goes back here. I'm sorry I didn't get a video of the EGR, but if you follow that hose you can feel it. It's right under the throttle body. So now we start putting our hoses back. We got that one right there, goes straight in. Now if you notice here, we got one that goes straight right there and the other side has the other one. If we would have pulled them out both at the same end, it would have been like hard to remember where it went. We put the top one back on. That little one that looks like a U, it goes from this little hose here onto the bottom of the EGR valve. We put that one on. So now we got the one that goes to the valve cover, to the intake right there. We start checking all the hoses. So now here I'm just double checking all the hoses, make sure I can touch every single hose with my screwdriver, just double checking everything. We got this back hose here. This one right here is connected. We got this one connected, the connector. The other side of that valve is also on. Alright guys, so that's how you replace your EGR solenoid in this 2002 Lancer 2.0. I'm not sure what other year's Lancers they are, but once I do the research, I'm going to put it right there in the description or maybe right here in the bottom so you guys know. This is called a solenoid and that's the part number. I'm sure I already put it once, but here it is again. That's the part number VS127 solenoid. This was about $60, $65, $70, somewhere around there. But that is once you figure out your EGR is not bad anymore. Like I said, I took out the EGR, I cleaned it out, make sure that it was working properly. Also, while my EGR was off, I went ahead and cleaned out the ports where the EGR goes. That's also a common issue when it comes to EGR. So if you need to do this on your vehicle, you need to replace the EGR solenoid. that is it, and that should be able to fix our code P0401. The only way to now to test that is going to be, I believe it's 2 or 3 cold start, which means clear out the check engine light, turn it on, let it heat up, turn it off, wait till it's completely cold, and then turn it on again. Wait until it gets to optimum temperature, turn it off again. So that's 3 cold starts, and then we should be able to see if the check engine light comes back on or not. But you guys saw how I tested it. So for sure, the other one was completely dead. So there's no way around it. Even if the EGR code comes back, that was part of the problem because we saw that the old ones was completely dead. Alright guys, we really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I know I talked too much. Don't forget to thumbs up, subscribe, hit that bell for me, share the channel. I will catch you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching. You guys have yourselves a great day.